we've all been that person that focuses so much on the things that we desire that we lose sight of the opportunities that can help us live the life of our dreams. I know personally, I have been the person that has looked at things that other people have, and I'm like, I'd like to live in that type of house. I'd like to drive that type of car, have that much money in my bank account, be able to take trips around the world. However, I lose focus of the opportunities that are all around me that can really help me live the fulfilling life that would actually be more fulfilling than having the thing. It's funny that a lot of people who end up obtaining a lot of the material things that many of us who don't have the material things we would like to have, a lot of the people who do have those things are not fulfilled by them. It doesn't make them happy. A lot of them get these material things only to realize later that, you know what, this isn't something that makes me happy. This isn't, I still feel just as empty on the inside having the thing as what I did before I actually got the thing. And so we're going to dive a little bit into having your focus shifted from chasing the desires or those internal desires for the things that we often pursue, and shifting that rather to focusing on the opportunities that are around you that will actually help you live the life that you really want to live. So I read the Bible, and in the Bible, there are a ton of stories that illustrate this point perfectly. One that comes to mind is Joseph. So if you don't know the story, Joseph is one of 12 brothers, and he has a dream that he ends up telling his parents and his brothers, telling them that, you know what, I dreamt that basically you all are going to bow down to me one day. I'm going to rise up above the rest of you all. Well, his brothers didn't take too kindly to that dream, and they threw him in a pit, sold him into slavery. So he worked as a slave in Potiphar's house when he went to Egypt, and then he was lied on and thrown in prison, spent years in prison. But all of this hardship brought him to the place to where he eventually ended up in the palace, serving as the second person in all of the land right under Pharaoh. And what this point illustrates is, it's a lot of things that's really packed into this story, but one of the things that it illustrates is that there was a journey that took place that got Joseph to the palace, but that journey was not pleasant. It was not something that many of us try to pursue, which is easy street. We want to take the easy road to get to things. We often don't want to take the difficult route to get to the destination that we ultimately want to be at, or that will ultimately fulfill us the most. And so with Joseph's path, it wasn't an easy path. It was a difficult path, but it was one that ultimately got him to a place that was second in command in all the country of Egypt, even to the point to where he ended up saving the very people that threw him into slavery and started him on this difficult journey. He ended up being the person that was put in the position to actually help those same people. And so that's just one of the many stories that are illustrated by, I mean, you could even look at the story of Moses bringing the people of Israel out of Egypt and into the promised land, to the promised land. Joshua brought them into the promised land, but you can even look at that story, and there's so much packed in there in terms of the difficult journey that they had to go along. However, there's also a difference in how they took that journey and the effect that it had on them ultimately being able to enter into the promised land, or rather not being able to enter into the promised land. So if you don't know the story, Moses goes into Egypt at the command of God and tells Pharaoh, let my people go. A lot of things happen. 10 plagues later, the Israelites are leaving Egypt and going into the wilderness on their way to the promised land. They don't take this journey lightly. There's a lot of complaining that goes on during this journey of a couple weeks to get to the promised land. There's a lot of complaining, a lot of murmuring, a lot of groaning, a lot of people saying, you know what, we should have just been slaves back in Egypt rather than having come out here to die in the wilderness. All of this stuff happened within a couple weeks time frame. All of this complaining, they did not journey well the road that was a little bit more difficult because there was discomfort associated with it. And they didn't realize that what was at the end of that discomfort was going to be something so much greater than anything they could have imagined. They were about to enter into a promised land with fields and fruit and everything that had already been cultivated and planted. And they were just about to take possession of the land, but they get right up to the land. And because of all their groaning and all their complaining on this road, God says, you know what? None of you are going to enter into the promised land. You're all going to die off. They spend 40 years in the wilderness rather than just the couple weeks that it took to get from Egypt to the promised land. They spend 40 years in the wilderness, and now they all die off, and then a new generation comes up, and that's the generation that ends up going into the promised land. Whereas if the previous generation had traveled better that road of difficulty, that road that actually had a lot of lessons to teach them about just trusting in God, doing what he says to do, then they would have been a lot better off and have been able to enter into a blessing, into a purpose, into a life that was bigger than their wildest dreams. But again, it was their inability to be able to recognize, you know what, the hardships that I'm going through right now are actually training me. They're teaching me. They're preparing me. It is part of what I need to go through in order to get to that point to where now I can live that life that I'm really wanting to live that life of fullness, that life of purpose, blessing, whatever it is. And so if you're wondering, what are you getting at? I thought this was a real estate podcast. It is, but there's so much stuff beyond real estate that still feeds into real estate. And part of it is that there's a journey that a lot of people don't like to go on. I'm often talking with people in real estate. So I'll take it to real estate for just a minute before we jump back. Even today, I was talking with a couple people who have gone through a lot of hurdles in order to accomplish their dream of home ownership. They haven't accomplished it yet, but there's been a lot of complaining about, why do you need these documents? Why do you need these documents? Why do you need this? Why do you need this? And that's a very small scale thing to say that, you know what, having been on the other side of it, I've purchased a couple homes, and having been on the other side of knowing that, yep, you know what, all these things are required. And then after you purchase that home, all of the nitpicking at, you know, we need this and we need this, and it's so minuscule. I remember back to when I purchased my first home. And when I purchased that home, there was, I will say, a miscommunication, something that was done between me and the loan officer, basically, to where she communicated something to me, but then as we got into the loan process, she communicated something different than what was originally communicated. And that kind of made me feel a certain way, to where I was like, okay, you've lost a little bit of trust with me, to the point to where I was like, do I even want to continue with this purchase? Because I feel like you're kind of taking advantage of me, or you're taking me on this, you know, this trip that I don't want to be on. And you know, you said one thing and now you're saying another thing. And I feel like that other thing is going to end up costing me, you know, an extra $1,000 or $2,000 or whatever it was. Had I have leaned into those feelings, had I have gotten to that point, or rather crossed that line and say, you know what, I don't want it anymore. You told me one thing, now you're telling me something different. Forget it, I'm out. I would have walked away from what has become the biggest source of my net worth, which is that first house that I bought, because I still own it. I've been renting it out for the last, I don't know, 8-10 years, however long it's been. Not quite 10 years, but it's grown exponentially in the amount of equity that it has, because it's more than doubled in value, or doubled in, you know, the price that it's worth. And so had I had leaned into that, and even though I was going through some difficult stuff in the loan process, had I just said, you know what, forget it, I don't want to deal with it anymore, I don't trust you, I'm just walking away, I would have also walked away from what was on the other side of that hardship that I was going through. I would have walked away from the hundreds of thousands of dollars of equity that I have sitting in that home currently. I would have walked away from the path that took me to purchasing my second home. There would have been so much knowledge and education that I would have walked away from, the lessons that I learned going through that I've also been able to share and help other people as a real estate agent and a loan officer. So again, just, you can take it in so many different facets. I work out. I like to exercise at least 3 to 4 times a week. Preferably, I'd like to do 5, but I tend to get so wrapped up in work because it's a lot doing what I do for a living. So I don't get to work out as much as I want to. But for those of you who do work out, if you start lifting weights, you start running, you start exercising, it doesn't initially feel good on your body. Your body actually feels the worst. Your muscles start to ache. If you're running for any long distance, you start to get winded, you start to get out of breath. You start to just think, if I can just make it a little bit further, make it a little bit further. And as you're going through these things, if you just stop, you're not going to get the benefit of what comes on the other side of having gone through lifting the things that were heavy, or gone through pushing through that next mile, or pushing through that next quarter mile, or gone through doing whatever the exercise is that you're doing that's building up muscle, because it takes that resistance in order to develop that strength that's going to help you to be able to lift things even heavier, that's going to be able to help you push and move and proceed on into the next thing of life. And so again, you can take this with so many different arenas, but it's oftentimes that we, just as being humans, want to take the path of least resistance. And often that path leads to a life of mediocrity, a life of insignificance. And you really want to try as hard as you can not to seek out a harder path, but when you are pursuing something that is worthwhile, understand that the harder path is going to be something that is going to come. It's going to be something that is going to happen. When you're pursuing something that is very much worthwhile, something that can have the potential to impact many, many people, whether it be just in your city, in your state, around the country, or the world, you're going to be met with resistance. And rather than running from that resistance, rather than trying to seek or search for a path that's easier to take, or a quicker way to get rich, or a quicker way to have impact, develop a mind to where you're willing to allow yourself to go through the process, learn the things that can be learned while you're going through the process, so that you can become that person that now is able to stand strong when you get into that position of after you've gone through your wilderness, after you've gone through this journey, this hardship. You've now been developed into that person that can stand strong in that place of leadership or power, or that place of influence. You're not a person that gets there and all of a sudden you start to see all of the flaws, and you start to see, the people that can't stand under the weight and the pressure of that, because they never actually went through the work of putting in those reps and building up their muscles and building up their intelligence or their acumen, building up the things that it takes to be able to withstand everything that's going to come at you. Because please believe, when you do get to that place, it doesn't get easy. There's still a work that has to be done to stay there, a work that has to be done to continue to grow from wherever that place is that you're aiming to get to. But recognizing that, there are a lot of opportunities around you, but to get to the place that you're desiring to be might mean that you need to stop focusing on what you desire to have, the cars, the clothes, the money, and you might need to focus on the opportunities that are around you right now that are going to help you reach your dreams, because there are a lot of opportunities all around us. I released a video earlier in the week, which was talking about 2 different perspectives. Basically, you've got, on the one side, people who say, this housing market sucks. There's nothing in this housing market for first-time home buyers. Prices are too high, inventory's too low. It's a bad time to purchase a home if you're a first-time home buyer. And then I had a cut to myself, another person, saying that, this housing market right now is great. It's chock full of opportunity for first-time home buyers who are looking to be able to get started on their home ownership journey and everything. And the thing is, both of those things are actually true simultaneously, because it has nothing to do with the actual market itself. It has everything to do with your focus on the opportunities that are around you, and then taking advantage of those opportunities, realizing that regardless of what's going on in the current environment, there's an opportunity that you can take advantage of to accomplish whatever it is that you're looking to accomplish or to do whatever it is that you're wanting to do. So that's what I want to encourage you in, is to don't focus so much on the desires. It's funny how when you focus on the right things, even though it might cause some discomfort, might cause some pain or some hardship in the short term, the destination that it's taking you to is going to be so much better. And it's funny that when you focus on the things that, again, are causing the hardship and the pain and the obstacles in the short term that are taking you to the better destination, all of the desires end up showing up in that same place. But when you chase after just the desires, if you don't achieve them, you haven't accomplished anything. If you do achieve them, you're not the person that can stand in the place that it takes to be able to maintain those things or to grow from it, because it was just handed to you. Again, you didn't have to go through anything to get it. So you're more likely to be able to lose what you do have, or not appreciate it, or realize that it's not even fulfilling you. But when you've gone through that journey where you've learned, you've grown, you've experienced some things that have taught you lessons that you can no otherwise learn, that's when you realize, you know what, now I'm in a place to where I feel like I'm supposed to be here. I should be here. I've accomplished something, and I can grow from this. I can become even better. There are even bigger dreams and aspirations of things that I want to accomplish. And I'm no longer shying away from or scared of that hardship that I know is going to be ahead. I rather embrace it, because I know that it's going to develop something within me that's going to help make me even better along the way. So that's what I have for you today. Thank you for taking the time to tune in. Make sure you focus on those opportunities that are around you. They are all around us all the time, regardless of what's going on in the economy or the environment. There's nothing that's happening around us that is dictating what we have the ability to do today. More of what we have the ability to do is dictated by what is inside of us rather than what's outside and around us. So please hit subscribe to the channel. Give me a thumbs up for this video if you thought it was helpful for you. And we'll see you in the next video. We'll see you in the next episode. Take care. Be blessed.